Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome to another Sims 4 Create a Sim video. So in today's video I am going to be creating Arthur Morgan. Arthur Morgan is the protagonist of the game Red Dead Redemption 2, which came out 4 weeks ago today. If you've never heard of it, Red Dead Redemption 2 is an open world game made by Rockstar about a gang of outlaws at the turn of the 20th century. It's the chronological predecessor of Red Dead Redemption, which came out about 8 years ago. So the game focuses on Arthur and his story as a member of a gang run by the man who essentially raised him, Dutch van der Linde. So the van der Linde gang has fallen on hard times after an incident that takes place before the start of the game, and as a result they're on the run from the law throughout the game. So Dutch is known for always having like one more big plan to save the gang and get them enough money to survive, but more often than not, these plans backfire, which causes him to become more and more irrational and take bigger risks that he previously wouldn't have taken. So Arthur sees what's happening to Dutch and over time begins to question if what they're doing and the way they're doing it is really the best way and the most honorable way to live their lives. So at the start of the game, Arthur is 36 years old and has been with Dutch and the rest of the gang for about 20 years, so he's definitely like no stranger to living a hard life. His look is a little bit weathered in a way that's really difficult to capture accurately in The Sims 4 because the art style is very different between the two games, but when I saw that there were quite a few Western-themed Create a Sim items that came out with Get Famous, I decided that it was worth a shot. So Arthur is very much your typical tough guy physically. He's broad-shouldered and fairly muscular, which works out well for him since he ends up doing a good amount of fighting in the game, and I assume he probably did that before the start of the game as well. His nose is actually pretty straight in profile, but if you look at him directly, you can see on the bridge of his nose where it's been broken at some point in his life, which, you know, again, not surprising considering what he does for a living. Somehow he doesn't have any visible scars. At least, like, not on his face, but his skin is like what you would expect from someone who spends pretty much all of their time outside before things like sunblock had been invented, and quite honestly, even if it was around in 1899, I seriously doubt that Arthur would bother using it. So he's definitely kind of like a rough around the edges kind of look, so I tried to emulate that the best that I could in The Sims 4, but like I said, the art styles of the two games are very different, so, you know, take it with a grain of salt. But one of the really cool things about Red Dead Redemption 2 is that hair and facial hair grows during the game. So if you don't go to a barber regularly, your Arthur's hair will continue to grow. So if you do a Google image search of Arthur Morgan, you'll see like a wide variety of hair and beard styles on Arthur, and that's why. So the Arthur that I've made is the closest to the Arthur hair and Arthur beard that I prefer, but I've also seen Arthur with like really, really short hair and an Arthur with like a really, really long beard that honestly kind of reminds me a little bit of ZZ Top. So Arthur always has light brown hair and like lighter colored eyes. Ideally, I would have given him hair that's a little bit lighter than what I end up with, but our hair options, you know, are kind of limited in The Sims 4, and this was the closest that I could get without going completely blonde. So Arthur's everyday look is very similar to what you see at the start of the game. He always has a satchel on in-game, but we don't really have anything like that in The Sims 4. Actually, the Western full-body dress that came with Get Famous has a satchel that's pretty close to what Arthur uses, but that would also require him to wear a dress, so I didn't want to use custom content, so he's just going to have to be satchel-less. So for his formal wear look, I went with a full-body outfit from Get Together that's actually very similar to an outfit that Arthur wears kind of begrudgingly for a very specific mission in the game, but I won't spoil that for you, and just in general, I'm not going to speak very specifically about particular things in the game, because I don't want to spoil it for anyone if you're not totally done with the story, and so, fair warning, this is a spoiler-free zone. So his athletic outfit is a variation on, like, the typical cowboy kind of outfit. One thing that I realized recently, actually, is that Arthur's hat is like a black or a very dark brown color, which is usually the color of a hat that's worn by the villain in Westerns, but Arthur, despite the fact that he's a criminal, isn't necessarily a villain, which I'll get to that more later. So Arthur's sleepwear is a set of basic pajamas. So there's one part in the game where you see him wearing long johns, but we don't really have long johns in The Sims 4. There's a thermal shirt from Parenthood that could kind of work, but the pants that go with it are just pajama pants, not like thermal pants or like long john pants. So I didn't bother with it, but there is kind of a limit on like the historical accuracy of clothing in a game that takes place in the modern day when you're trying to dress people from a long time ago. And like I said, I don't ever use custom content and things that I share on the gallery. So there is no custom content on him, but I'm sure if you look around, there's probably way better options out there if you want to be like much more historically accurate here. So Arthur's party wear is another variation on a typical cowboy or outlaw outfit, but it's a little bit nicer than what he wears most of the time. So after the first chapter of the game, you can change Arthur's clothes. So again, there's going to be like a good amount of variety as far as what you see him wearing goes. Arthur's swimwear is literally just a pair of swim trunks, because Arthur can actually swim in this game, which if you played the first Red Dead Redemption game, you'll remember that the protagonist of that game, John Marston, cannot swim. So it's really cool actually that they gave Arthur that ability in this game, but he just swims in whatever clothes he's currently wearing, because usually he's swimming to try to get away from something. So it's like not leisure time for him. But I didn't want to make him wear a full set of clothes to go swimming, because this is for The Sims, and that would honestly just look kind of ridiculous. So for his hot weather outfit, I again went with like a typical outlaw cowboy kind of look, but it's not quite as layered as the other looks. So like there's no jacket, there's no vest, it's like a nice button-down shirt, and of course the cowboy pants from Get Famous. And then finally, his cold weather outfit is almost identical to his everyday outfit, plus the addition of a pair of gloves. So since his everyday outfit is based on what he wears at the start of the game, and the start of the game takes place in a blizzard, I figured it would make the most sense to just use the idea of his everyday outfit and just make it more cold weather friendly. So when it came to picking out traits for Arthur, I settled on loves the outdoors and kleptomaniac very quickly, because he's an outlaw who spends almost all of his time outside, so that was pretty easy. But I didn't want to use anything like good or evil or mean-spirited, because that's not necessarily Arthur. So in Red Dead Redemption 2, they have an honor scale that impacts certain events of the game. So if you want to play Arthur as an evil jerk who shoots every person he sees and doesn't help strangers he encounters on the road, you can do that. But if you want to play Arthur as a generally good person who just happens to be a criminal, you can do that too. So personally, that's the Arthur that I'm most familiar with, and to me it makes the most sense based on the story of the game, because Arthur often refers to himself as not a good person, even as he's doing mostly good things and has pretty high honor. But especially like as the game progresses, other people will point out to him that he's actually not that bad of a guy, because he's aware that the way he lived his life up until that point isn't great, and as a result, he tries to redeem his past actions, which is, the redemption part of the title of the game. But I realized that not everyone wants to play Arthur this way, so I didn't assign him a trait that would kind of determine his honor. One of the more surprising things about Arthur, actually, is that he's fairly artistic. Throughout the game, he writes in a journal that he keeps in his satchel, which gives insight into what's going on in his head as the story progresses. He also uses his journal as a sketch pad, and you'll often find drawings of the scenery around him or any plants and animals he discovers. And these aren't like simple little doodles, they're like really beautiful, especially his drawings of scenery and the people around him. But I was afraid that if I gave him the artistic trait in The Sims, that all he would want to do is draw or paint, and in Red Dead Redemption 2, that's not really something that he wears on his sleeve. As far as I know, no one else in the gang knows how talented his artwork is, and Arthur doesn't really strike me as somebody who would be boastful about his hobbies like that. So in the end, I settled on the loner trait for him, because despite the fact that he lives with a gang and has for most of his life, he's generally a pretty reserved guy who doesn't open up to people very easily. So I think introverted would actually probably be a better fit for his personality, but since we don't have an introverted trait specifically, I went with the next best thing, which is loner. He also spends a lot of time in the game by himself, except for story missions. So most of the time he's exploring the world and hunting and fishing to try to bring back food for the rest of the gang, or he's just doing odd jobs or favors for strangers he encounters on the road. But there's really only like a small handful of people that he feels comfortable opening up to. So that's why I kind of went with loner in the end. So this is Arthur Morgan from Red Dead Redemption 2. If you'd like to download him for your use in The Sims 4, the easiest way to find him is to click on the link in the description box below this video, or you can always search on the gallery using the hashtag MrsTomato1018 or through my origin ID, which is also MrsTomato1018. And as always, there is no custom content, so you don't have to worry about that. But I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, you can do so down below. I put up a new video 4 times a week, so thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye!
Thank you.